Hi, Deb. Thank you so much for being on our Puppy podcast today. We're really excited to hear your point of view and to kind of grow with our knowledge of mental health and yoga and body awareness.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Just to get it out there, I am going to be quite vulnerable and talk about some pretty deep things that have happened. So I just wanted to warn everybody. I won't go into so much, details, but it is a part of the story, and I just wanted to put that out there so there's no surprises.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, well, I guess our first question to you is telling us a little bit about your early relationships with your body and what played a role in shaping your views.
Oh boy. Got to
Oh,
dig.
and I guess, should we ask you what your professional background is first? Sorry. Mental health.
Well, currently I am a licensed master social worker with a concentration in clinical social work. So I've done outpatient therapy, inpatient therapy. What I do now is I'm a care manager for an insurance company. So it's my job to try and connect people with resources for their behavioral and medical health. I work on an integrated team. And this is something that is very near and dear to me. Um, I feel like what brought me to this profession is growing up, I didn't have an outlet for all of these things that I was going through. And I just figured, if I can be someone to help someone through and just be there to, sit with them and empathize with them, that can make a tremendous difference in someone's life. So it's a very rewarding job. It's quite difficult right now with all this COVID stuff, but we're doing the very best we can to try and support people and support each other.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. So I'll go back to my first question to tell us first about like your early relationship with your body and kind of what shaped that and like the background with body image.
Okay. Um, Growing up, I was always taller than most of the kids around me. So it was never, the perception was I'm just like everybody else. I didn't see myself as bigger or smaller or anything like that. But I was a very sensitive kid. So when things that weren't necessarily about me affected me deeply, things like endangered wildlife and, tragedies and all of that, I had these huge feelings and didn't really know how to express them. And, in my family, it was one of those things, well, we just don't talk about it. You're fine. It's normal. Everybody feels that way. I was told, don't get mad, don't get upset, don't cry. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with all these feelings that I have? So it was something that I knew something was affecting me on a very deep level, but I didn't really have the language to express that. And I didn't know how to ask for help for it because, I was told that's just part of life. You just deal with it. So it was pointed out at some family gatherings. I distinctly remember hearing someone in the background say, "Oh my gosh, is she eating again?" Or like my grandmother, who is now no longer with us, but she had a lot of comments about my body and like would ask my mom right in front of me, like, are you going to let her keep eating? And things like that. And just those really subtle messages of, that's not appropriate. And I guess the point, I struggled with intense anxiety through high school is when it really started. but I was still active. So I was doing all these things. I was in band, I was in show choir, and was active. Um, so it wasn't really an issue. Um, but then when I got to college, I, like many girls, I had an incident of sexual assault. And from that, it sent me into what Brene Brown calls a shame spiral. And it's it's this concept that you are just flooded with shame and guilt and feeling like you are no longer worthy of anything. You don't have anything to contribute. You're damaged. There is something about you that is not worthy. So it sent me into these really unhealthy coping behaviors, restricted eating, disordered eating, um, some substance abuse, just so I wouldn't have to face and feel the way that I did. And, women around me, college age, were just obsessed with body image and how we looked in things, and, were we attractive, and, all of those things that, is talked about. Um, but it just took me a very long time to understand, where these ideas came from. And there was a quote that I read that just really changed things for me. It said, "Who were you before the world told you who to be?" I was like, man, okay. Because, when we're flooded with things like, you need to be a certain size, you need to eat this way, you need to present yourself as such. And I was like, okay, well, if I wear the right clothes, if I say these things, if I fit in, then I won't feel like this. And turns out that's not exactly how it works. So that's just a little bit of history. And I think we're going to segue into the next part that I can.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that quote. Do you know who said it?
It wasn't me. I wish it was. I don't remember. I can find out though.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I mean, none of us can escape body image and what we're told to look like, and like you said, be like and act like, all these messages that we get, whether we're aware of them or not. And so yeah, I think everyone can relate to that.
The underlying message that I really received was, "You're not good enough. What you look like isn't the ideal, and no one's going to take you seriously." And from a clinical point of view, a lot of those people that have eating disorders, it's easy to say it's a vanity thing. If you scratch just a little bit deeper, it's very, very common for people to say, I'm not worthy, or I'm just not enough the way that I am. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, and it would be so interesting to see like the male perspective on that versus female perspective, because they're also sent different I always thought it was stronger for women because like we have to uphold this line of beauty like our entire lives, no matter how old we are or how young we are, we need to like look this certain age too. So I find all that interesting. I also find it interesting that, as a victim, you're flooded with shame and guilt where it should be the perpetrator. Like it doesn't make logical sense, and so I know that's like another podcast to explain that, because I didn't understand that until I spoke with more victims from sexual assault, why they felt like they were, why they felt shame, because it doesn't it's not rational, right? But I know that mindset is not rational and how you feel after. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay. So now we're getting into like how your image of your body, how your view of your body changed through through the practice of yoga and what was a transformation with that?
Well, initially, when that was, a few years after that, I was a compulsive exerciser. So I would go to the gym, 2, 3 times a day, and just, kill myself with workouts, like, kind of as like a way to punish, like, you deserve this, and you know I had no sense of who I was as a person anymore outside of that. So initially, I went to a hot yoga studio because I heard on their advertisements that you could burn 600 calories in one session. I was like, that's it, that's it for me, because this running sucks and it's not helping me whatsoever. So I went to a hot yoga class, and it was intense, and it was, I'm sure I burned those calories. But the idea of yoga seemed so unattainable for me because of what I had seen in the media, and, kind of looking around the class, I was like, oh boy, I don't belong here. And I got that sense without anyone saying it to me. Nobody needed to. Message received. But I kept at it, and then I tried some other studios, and I was like, maybe I'll fit in somewhere, a little bit better. And as I started practicing yoga here, at home, and with some other studios, I found that I was able to really change that mindset of, look at what you can't do. You'll never be that. Your body was not made to do that. Well, actually, I can do a lot of these things. And if I keep practicing, I can do this. I'll be just fine. So yoga really helped me with the acceptance piece of, you are where you are today. You should honor that, and I know that you guys that practice regularly, some days, some poses are just easy peasy, and then others, they're just not available. And that's okay. And that's what yoga really taught me is, this is something that you are doing for your body. This is a gift. This is something that helps you to be a part of something greater than just you. You can contribute to the wellness and the happiness of this world by, doing this practice and meditating. And it, like I said, the main thing, it helped me focus on what I could do and the strength that I already have versus where I wish I was.
Thank you. Yeah, it reminds me of when I was in New York City, which again is more aggressive people traditionally. And I was in my studio at the time, and someone was like, how can you tell what level people are? And I'm like, oh, this person over here who's like sweating to death and trying to like push themselves, that's a beginner. This person in child's pose, that's a teacher. And so that difficulty of that learning curve to know and love your body. So thank you. Okay, so
Wait, and
yeah.
two, I was going to say one of the best concepts that I've been able to take away is, take up your space. This is your space on the mat, instead of trying to shrink yourself into some kind of mold where you think that that's what the ideal is. Spread out, take up your space. This is your, you can take up as much space as you need to, want to. And that was really big for me, because I'd always tried to, be smaller, and I was told, my voice is too loud, I'm too big, my feelings are too big. So I try to shrink that down, and yoga gave me the freedom to just spread out.
I love that. Stop dimming your light, Deb.
Exactly.
So I think this is really beautiful because, the studio has now been open for 5 years, and there is a transformation in a lot of pockets of where the image of yoga has changed in the last 5 years. Because I know Yoga Journal is trying to redo the image of what we know of yoga, who practices yoga, and what a yoga body is. But can you kind of share some insight on what you've seen as transformation? Are we doing enough? What can bring this message to people that yoga is for everyone? It's not for this certain body.
And I thought really hard about this question, and this is an opinion. This is just my own take on it. When I see those images of the stereotypical yoga person, that's out there, and that's fine. It's a beautiful practice, but there are a lot of Instagram is one of the platforms that it seems like it's coming around, and there are people living in larger bodies. There are people of color. There are people with disabilities, some veterans that have lost their limbs doing yoga. So I feel like a way for us to promote that positivity. I mean, promote what you love instead of talking about what you don't. Because if we're being honest, in the spirit of yoga, we're not supposed to judge. So me judging that image, well, that's not yoga or whatever, that defeats the purpose. So I think that if outlets like Yoga Journal and things like that, if we respond positively to the variety of people that are practicing, those that are older, those that kids, all of those populations that we don't typically associate, let's lift those up. Let's share those things. Let's talk about how amazing that is. And I do have one book that actually helped me. This is a girl a woman from Instagram. Her name is Jessamine Stanley, and she rocks. Like she's there and doing these headstands and these really complicated poses, and she talks about the stigma of that she had to overcome as being a larger woman of color and coming in and being able to do all these things. So I mean, going back to it, I really think that the way for us to get our message out of love and acceptance for everyone is promoting those things. So by sharing the practices of people that you wouldn't normally see, because it's amazing. It's so good.
Thank you. I think that's great. So what would you tell someone if they say, oh, yoga's not for me? What is like your response?
Well, number one, have you tried it? No? Okay. Well, then you don't know, do you?
So simple and logical, Deb.
I mean, just try it. That's like people saying, like, calm down when you have bad anxiety. I'm like, thanks. That's super helpful. Thanks. Anyway, no, I think that, that's a real opportunity for you to talk to someone about, what yoga has done for you, and kind of breaking that stigma that it's just for skinny people. And there's so many more benefits than just the physical practice. And through teacher training, that is something that I never anticipated that I would get that much out of it. Just that sense of feeling where your body is in space. And if you've got tight hips or tight shoulders, things like that. And with time and regular practice, you're probably going to be more flexible. But I think there's a lot of hesitation for people that have never done it, because they're like, I'm going to fall on my face. They're going to ask me to stand on my head, and I can't do that. And, I think that, we as teachers and practitioners of yoga have the opportunity to really educate and find out, well, what's the hesitation? Are you nervous about being in front of people? Or, is group exercise not your thing? So just kind of diving a little bit deeper into that, and just being supportive and saying, everybody starts somewhere. Nobody's born being a yoga master or whatever that means. Um, so yeah, just offer that support along their journey with them.
Great answer. Um, so you have said that your relationship changed with your body, changed with yoga. And, we can say that a lot of people probably don't have the best relationship with their body. So like what advice would you give to people? And then now we have this term like love your body, but is that the same as like telling someone to calm down when they're freaking out? Like, how do I do this? It's not really like a roadmap. And so how would you explain that to someone, and how would you tell them how to go through that path of learning to love their body?
Okay, this is gonna be a long one.
It's kind of a tough question. So
Well, I think, like I was saying earlier, just telling someone, well, quit worrying about it, or quit hurting yourself, with food, or, just eat a cheeseburger. Don't say that to people. That's not helpful. And don't say that. What and this is something that I have used with my clients in therapy as well as myself. One of the first things that I found was really helpful when I was in that shame spiral of, well, my pants don't fit right now, or I just don't look good in my clothes. So what I would do is I would go out with the mindset of complimenting other people on things that are not physical, such as your smile is gorgeous, or I really like your outfit, or having someone say, I just feel happy when I'm around you. So talking to people and acknowledging those things that are not about their body shape, or, because have you lost weight? You know, for it is a compliment, and most of the time it is coming from a good place. But for someone that has a history of disordered eating and distorted body image, it's like, oh, well, was I not okay before I lost the weight? Like, you know perfect example, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm sure you guys saw in the media about Adele, the singer, and how she lost 100 pounds.
really, no.
Okay, well, yeah, she did. And, for that is absolutely her decision, her journey, everything. But the media was just congratulating her on this huge feat. I'm like, she was a great multiple Grammy winner singer when she was larger. What I mean, losing weight is not the only accomplishment that should be celebrated in people. Let's look at the other contributions that she's given. And there was just a media firestorm about it, and celebrities talking about that stuff and getting in arguments and everything. But anyway, so that it once you train your mind to look for those things in other people, it's going to be a lot easier for you to say those things to yourself. Like, my eye makeup looks great today, or, my hair's having a great day. So you're going to be noticing those things about other people. And in turn, it's also going to help you look for those things in yourself as well. Um, Another thing, if you're in that shame spiral, something that can help is getting connected with a cause that you're really passionate about. If it's cleaning up trash, when you go for a walk, if it's volunteering for the animal shelter or, a local cause like that, if you're passionate about climate change, getting involved in something that is greater than yourself and promotes a positive feeling, that can really help you to see that you're not just the way that you look in this body. You are so much more than that. And you're doing a really awesome thing for other people as well. So those are some tips too. And then on an individual level, yes, I realize I am saying this as a therapist, but I don't think there is a person in this world that could not benefit from it. And, individual therapy, people have these misconceptions that you're going to go in and you're going to just say all your problems and the therapist is going to give you advice on how to fix it. A good therapist is going to challenge you. A good therapist is there to help you recognize how you can cope with whatever's going on. They're not there to tell you what to do. They're not there, to really give advice. They're to help guide you through these thought processes and how you can change them. It is difficult. It is hard. My therapist, I've been so mad at him sometimes. I'm just like, how dare you make me go that deep? But if nothing changes, nothing changes. And as hard as that work is, being stuck in it feels much worse. So just putting that out there.
Thanks, Deb. That's great. Well, thank you for answering our questions. And so I'm going to now open it up to anyone who has questions on, body image, yoga, mental health, or Deb. It doesn't have to end there. It could be other questions.
Hey there, how are you?
Hi.
I wanted to ask you something. In my culture in Venezuela, it's a big thing like body image, everybody gets implant, and it's like something ingrained in your culture. And of course, as much as I never in my life really dealt with like weight fluctuations, but yeah, I guess to some degree with a little bit of body image. And even with family members and everything, it seems like the first thing when they say hi to you is like, oh, you put so much weight. Oh, look how skinny you are. Oh, now you have arm definitions. It's so annoying. I'm like, it's so much more than that. Uh, so how do you address that? Any advice on how to address that in a polite way? Because then at the same time, I feel like, sometimes you just need to brush off things, but to what point you brush off things? Because internally you are absorbing those things because these are people that you care about.
Of course.
So I don't know if you have any advice about that.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And that has been my experience in a lot of family gatherings, and I'm sure everyone here too. I really just want to say my body is not for you to comment upon. That's not kind. So in that way, if they say something like, oh, your arms are so defined and everything, you can say, thank you. I've been working really hard on that. Sometimes, and people will be, and this happens to me all the time, people will say, well, how'd you do it? And what are your secrets? And what are your tips? I'm like, I'm taking care of myself. I'm eating healthy food because it makes me feel better versus the processed junk, or, I'm moving because I have, the ability to do so right now. And I may not always do that. Yeah, Maria, it's difficult, because yes, you're right. These people do care about you, and you know they feel like they
About
need
them
you
too,
to.
so it's really hard to not take it personal, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know, it's not about you. It's
Right.
about them,
Totally.
and they might be saying something, because of a little jealousy, or it could be a very genuine loving thing. I think, just for me, I just say, thank you, I appreciate that. I'm gonna go somewhere else now.
I feel
Um,
like for Dell now that hers was all over the paper.
I was gonna make a quick comment. I remember something that you said in the teacher training
Hmm.
that really resonated with me, and it's the fact that we need to celebrate movement, whatever shape it takes. That really, and as a will head studying a physical therapy school, I mean, that's what I want to bring to help people, to move. Movement is so powerful.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
And we take it for granted.
yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Maria. You're going to be such a good physical therapist. I'm going to come to you just to let you do something.
I second that.
I have two questions. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my first question is like, for the person who, let's say, tried yoga and they showed up at a vinyasa class and were like, what the crap? And, are giving you the answer, well, yes, I did, and this didn't work out for me. Like, how do you encourage them, or talk to them about different types or different studios or different, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. I think in that case, and I mean, that's certainly some people's first exposure to yoga. They see, vinyasa flow, and it sounds fun. Um, Try to get them to talk about their experience there. What about it was intimidating? Was it the teacher? Was it the poses? Was it the pace? And then, as a trained teacher, you can say, well, would you like to try something a little bit different with me? Or, I can direct you to this YouTube video, or DVD or whatever, that is still very much a part of the yoga world, but it's different. Would you be open to exploring some other options for yoga? Because that's one very, very small part of it. There's a lot of other stuff out there, that you might want to enjoy.
That's awesome. And then my other question is, at the beginning of the podcast, you had mentioned how, when you were growing up, you weren't really given the tools to, or the language to identify like your emotions, your feelings, and therefore obviously to move through your feelings. And so I'm curious, like, as a human who was also raised in a similar environment, and I'm like still exploring every day that I don't always know how to identify what emotions that I am like slipping in and out of. And now I'm a parent and I really want to be able to like find some resources, find new knowledge, on how to not only teach myself, but teach myself in order to teach my child how to do that. And I was just curious if you have any good resources for that.
I do. This is
Mhm.
called Permission to Feel: Unlocking the Power of Emotions to Help Our Kids, Ourselves, and Our Society Thrive. It just came out. And, I think it's a real disservice to children that we don't allow them to express themselves. Like, they think that they're sad, happy, angry, what there's so many different emotions out there. And, it takes a lot of self exploration. Like if I'm feeling ashamed of something, or if I feel guilty, I just have to sit with it. And I say, okay, what was the trigger? Was I disappointed by somebody? Am I frustrated because I'm not being heard by someone? It takes a lot. Emotional intelligence is definitely something that you can learn, but you have to also be aware that it's going to be tough, because there's a lot of people that won't allow themselves to go that deep and feel those things so they can deal with it. And I've definitely been one of those. Um, but over time, just recognizing what it is that you're feeling, and you can make yourself, a mental list of, okay, when I feel like this, here's what I can do that helps me feel better. Or if you just need to sit with it and meditate on it, because that's what we talk about meditation is. It's just taking things as they are, accepting them, not trying to change it, and notice it without judgment. But that is a really good book, that talks about, how our patterns shape us. And, if we're not encouraged to talk about feelings, then how do we really know what they are? So yeah, it's an excellent book, and it talks about, how to invite your kids to express themselves, and to sit there with them and have empathy through it.
That's wonderful. And I love that the word thrive is in the title, because that's like my word lately. I thought of another kind of situation. So like, you talking about people and therapy, right? Like I have kind of two things I wanted to say about that. Is like, one, I'm very open about my experience with therapy, because the first time I had it, it did absolutely nothing for me. The therapist was not a good fit for me, and I honestly didn't know. And I hope that maybe through this podcast that people can learn that, going to a therapist doesn't always mean that they're going to be the right fit for you, and you really need to try someone new. And so when I had my second therapist actually here in Knoxville, she completely, like you said, I mean, she threw me under the bus and was like, you have to take care of yourself. Like, you have to learn these skills. This is not, I'm not here to save you. You're here to save you. And that was really an incredible thing for me, and has changed my life so much. So I hope people know that like therapy does require a little bit of time to adjust to the person and find the right fit. But I also wanted to bring up a question about therapy is like, what if you encounter someone who you can really see needs the help in that way, and you try to encourage them, and as opposed to like the thinking they go in and it's a quick fix, they're afraid of being diagnosed. Does that make sense? So like they're afraid of being diagnosed and being labeled to have a mental illness.
Yep. That's something that we are still fighting as a society. It's, same thing with the yoga stuff. It's getting a little bit better. But for whatever reason, it's not normalized, especially during this time that, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's things that we can't even put our finger on that we're feeling. And for that, someone, we can't make someone, do something that they're not ready or they're not willing to do. I feel like, and just personally, I feel like if I don't share my own story and my own, struggles with mental health, then I'm contributing to that stigma. Like it's something to be ashamed of, and it's not. I do take medication. It has helped me significantly. Will I take it forever? I don't know. And I tried everything I could possibly do to not have to take medication, because I was like, I don't want to put chemicals in my body, so I, every single diet, every supplement, all these things. And it just wasn't enough for me. And, coming from a therapist, I'm like, you know how to do this. You have all these books of exactly what you should, help someone through. And that was, shaming in itself. Like, well, you're not a very good therapist if you can't, identify your own stuff. But I would just, make it, an open conversation as much as you can. And it's an opportunity, you can present therapy as an opportunity for you to be a better version of yourself. If you're really not happy with the way that things are, could changing your thinking about stuff be something that could really help you? And I'm so glad you mentioned that about not, fitting with every therapist, because it's just like any other doctor. I've been to some doctors who I got a bad vibe from, and, no. You have the right to explore and to find those providers that are going to listen to you and, value your time, because, otherwise, why waste your time? So yeah, circling back, I would just try to have an open conversation with them, and maybe sharing, some of your experiences, not the whole therapy process, but just saying, it really helped me think about things a little differently, and I recognized some thought patterns that really were a disservice to me, and all of that stuff.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Deb. I love you.
I love you.
Any other questions for Deb?
Who was that book by, that Permission to Feel?
It is by Mark Brackett, PhD, and get this, he is the director for the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence.
Wow.
That's my next job. I'm just kidding. Yeah, they have an entire center at Yale University about emotional intelligence and how to get people to understand what they're feeling and what to do with it. And it's Yale, so it's got to be good, right?
Any other questions for Deb? Okay, well,
It was a good talk. Thank you.
I'm so grateful for y'all just listening and hearing me out. And, sometimes putting a real person with something makes it sink a little bit deeper. It just makes it more personal. So thank you for allowing me this space to speak. And I'm grateful for the opportunity and grateful for all of the people that I've met through Blue Ridge.
thanks, Deb. We love you. So thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your thoughts, and thanks for everyone for the fantastic questions. So this was great. Thank you.